Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Well, it's not quite 1 o'clock yet. So I'll go dark. And we're back. um, it's 1 p.m. on, what is today, Wednesday? Wednesday, February 28th, 2024. I'm Father Christopher Johnson, and we're here to talk about this. In this case, the this we're talking about today is the saints. And the first thing we're going to do is say a prayer. O Heavenly King, Comforter, Spirit of Truth, who art everywhere present and fillest all things, treasury of good things and giver of life, come and dwell in us and cleanse us of all impurity, and save our souls, O good one. Okay. I need to make sure. I'm going to turn my. The monitor is kind of distracting me, and now I can't remember. There we go. Okay, that's a little less distracting to me. I'm pretty sure I'm coming through okay in volume. And I've got Theo with me as usual. So, I need to bring up the control panel and the chat window so I can see what the heck is going on. Drop. My friend Drop. And so I realized this, like, this isn't exactly a Quad Verum product, my videos, and so I need to remind myself of that and not just talk to QV people as though everybody knew what I was talking about. So my good friend in the chat is mentioning that Final Fantasy. I call you my good friend. I'd never met you before in my life, but I feel like we've known each other for years at this point, because we kind of have. Um, and all the love in the world goes over to the Quad Verum social media. Um, I'm not going to put links in the description because listen here, Quad Verum is not for everybody. It's just not. Okay, you have to have a certain attitude, a certain way of looking at the world, and a certain, I guess, thickness of skin to hang out there for long. So and that's not that is not you know it's just not for everyone. It's that's okay. Enough about that. so Drop from Quad Verum is mentioning that Final Fantasy uh, Rebirth is dropping here in less than a day, which is exciting, or would be if I had a PlayStation. Um, and I don't. So I'm gonna have to wait for the PC release, like I did for Remake. But I was not disappointed with that. I'll tell you the truth. I think Final Fantasy VII Remake is maybe the best Final Fantasy game. If I'm being objective about it, it might be the best one of all time. So I expect Rebirth to follow in its footsteps. And let's see. Maybe I should also. It's a live stream. I don't have to be too on point at every second. Um, but let me see if I should. I can go ahead and post a link back in QV and maybe a couple other places. Um, so, but I shouldn't get too cash about it, right? I don't want to waste my viewers' time. Um, yeah, see, and that's so Drop says he agrees. He said best of all time, although the original was the best in his opinion before that. And that on that I disagree. I think it's Final Fantasy VI, and that says a lot to me. If I'm actually analyzing it, I think I have to acknowledge that 7 remake is better than 6. The translation on the original 7, I'm sorry, was just a complete mess. It made the plot of the game very difficult to follow for me at 17 or however old I was at the time. Um, so and it was messy, disjointed, just felt strange. Like one of the things that makes this so great is the how sensitive and deep the characterizations are. Um, but yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's the greatest. And so I'm willing to wait. I'm very patient about. I've got a huge stack, a pile of shame of games I've not played. I might even dedicate, instead of playing Morrowind, which I've played a bunch, maybe I'll dedicate the Stays Up Too Late shows to being me addressing my pile of shame, the games that I have yet to play or that have, are less than half finished. Um, yeah, and that makes sense. Drop says he was only 9 when he played it the first times, meaning Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, it's easier to be. I first of all, let me not hide the fact that I was 100% in love with Final Fantasy VII when it came out, and that feeling never really went away. It's just that, I mean, because 6 had a remarkably good translation, especially compared to the ones that had come before it. It might have been the best localization of a Japanese game to date. And that was so I was kind of spoiled by that. But I think 7 was rushed because I think it was the translation on 7 famously may have been rushed because, or infamously or something, if I've got that right, without looking anything up. um, yeah, it was rushed to completion in order to get it to be able to ship in the U.S. at the same time as Japan or something like that. I don't know. So let's see here. Um, you know what? I'm not going to bother posting the link. Um, I got my son in the background. He wants a different toy Paw Patrol. You see, I raise my children, or rather, YouTube raises my children. And most of what they're being raised with is, of course, videos of other children or their mothers playing with toys that they don't have. He would rather watch a video of people playing with Paw Patrol toys than watch the actual show Paw Patrol. Doesn't that say something interesting? That's fascinating to me. He would rather watch a YouTube video of somebody playing with toys than watch the show that the toys are based on. That's he wants a different toy Paw Patrol. All right, well, I'll just grab the next one on the list. Hopefully that's not too much in the background. I'm also supposed to get a one of these foam background things for the microphones so that it blocks out stuff that's happening on that side of the room. So maybe I'll make that investment soon as well. Well, see, and Drop says his kids do the same, but or they watch other kids do activities than they would actually do them themselves. Yeah, to a degree, that's true as well. But actually, I look at that as a positive. So it doesn't even occur to me to ask them if they want to do half the things they're watching on the screen when they're watching these crazy YouTubers build gigantic, fill their house with a million Orbeez or fill their build a triple decker trampoline diving setup in their backyard. Um, all I care about is that whatever the channel is doing, it's not selling immorality to my children. And so watching a bunch of sort of there's one channel called Dangy Bros, and they're basically like a sort of Christian. I mean, they're not explicitly Christian, but you can tell that they're like homeschooled, like out west. Maybe they're Mormons, maybe they're some kind of Protestant. I can't tell, but they have a big family, and they're all my kids have grown up watching these kids grow up. They're kids doing crazy things in their backyard. It's like a family friendly Jackass is what it is. Um, so tuning in to support the channel, giving a toddler a bath. Yes, my friend A Game Writer is once again showing his support, for which I'm very appreciative. And to show my appreciation, I'm going to transition to black the right way. Let's try it again. Yay! It's a good feeling when something works, even if it's something super simple. However, somebody did actually have a question from QV, and so let me see if I can bring this up. Let's see here. All right, let's see if this will be successful. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to screenshot this question. All right, so no, that's not really going to work. But anyway, here's what we do. All right, so I've done that, and I'm going to share this window. Let's find out here what happens. I'm sorry for doing this live for everybody. I should probably practice this or something when I'm not streaming, but I don't know. It's more fun this way in a way. But I apologize for wasting your time. Obviously, this isn't what anybody came to actually see. But let's add a source. I'm going to add a source in OBS. And that source is going to be a window capture, create new, green shot. I don't have to do it this way. I'm really just like doing it in a stupid roundabout way. And we're going to share that. We're going to add the source, and we're going to whoops, not do that. No. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this. All right. That's obviously crazy. I shouldn't be showing the screenshot image, the greenshot image editor while I'm sharing it, but here we go. Can you all read that? Is that too small? Maybe I can even zoom in more. How about if I use the tool to zoom in? Can I do that? Yeah, I hadn't grabbed the image itself yet, so I was just trying to. What I need to do is pre-prepare these quotes. And Game Writer is telling me all you need to do is show an image and add an image source. Yeah. What I need to do is just pre-grab these quotes and set them up as individual images and be able to share them. But now I realize that through this practice session. But anyway, can you read what's there? It's a little small, maybe. Let's blow it up like this. There we go. That's a little better. Anyway, so Lola asks, what lessons do we learn from saints, especially those who lived among us in the 20th century and were canonized? What can Americans learn from those saints who were martyred during this era? Well, that's an interesting question. and let me transition off of it again. Let's see. That's not what I wanted to do, right? Oh, I want to have a different scene. Anyway, okay, that's a whole other level. Not another level, but another aspect of this transitioning between stuff. But actually, I probably want to leave that on the screen. So I'm going to do it again. And my apologies for, again, this sort of stutter start. So, lessons do we learn from saints? Okay. Well, first of all, the saints that are martyred during this era are the ones in Russia. Lola is referring to, when she's speaking of the ones who were martyred, for the vast majority of those that were martyred during this period were Russian. There were the Armenians, of course. There were many martyrdoms during the Armenian genocide. However, I'm afraid I have to admit to not knowing the details about the Armenian genocide from a religious standpoint. And that's but that's okay. I mean, I was raised in the Russian Orthodox Church. Yeah, embiggened for Game Writer suggests it could be embiggened for those watching on a phone while not full screened. Yeah. And so really, I mean, right now I'm not going to do that, but only because I know what I would need to do to make that work. What I need to do is clip this out, cut out a bunch of that image, and I should have done it ahead of time. So forgive me being a sort of lazy bum on that stuff. But yeah, I know what you mean, and I'm gonna I'll make sure it's that way next time. But back to the saints, and specifically the martyrs of the 20th century. There are it's an untold number. We roughly know, history roughly knows how many people Stalin is responsible for killing. But that's not the same as the number of martyrs. And so it's a very large number. Hundreds, I mean, dozens of bishops, hundreds of thousands of priests and deacons, like sort of main clergy ranks, and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, hundreds of thousands of lay people. You could easily make the argument that were killed for no other reason than that they were Christians. So what can we learn from those who were martyred during this era? We can learn that there was a lot of death in the 20th century, a whole lot. What did, the Victor Davis Hanson, I heard him recently call it the laboratory of death, which is true. It's a very dramatic phrase, but accurate. It was also the laboratory of martyrdom. There have been other laboratories of death before the 20th century, other periods of rapid expansion of military technology, the advent of gunpowder, and there's a lot of things like that in history. So the 20th century, martyrdom achieved a new scale, like every other kind of death. But what we learn from the martyrs is what we always have learned from the martyrs. It's what drew my parents to the Orthodox Church. They they read a book called Russia's Catacomb Saints, which is all about the Russian new martyrs in the underground church in Russia. And they looked around them, and they didn't see anybody like that at their church, which is not any impugning of the character of anyone at that church. I've said before, I think, that if I had my druthers, I would love to. It would be great to be able to. Anyway, the point is, they didn't see anyone at their church that they thought would go through anything like what the Russian new martyrs and the Russian underground church went through for the sake of the Episcopalian Church. Sadly, we see what a lot of mainstream churches do. They bow to the state. And there were portions of the Russian Orthodox Church that bowed to the state as well, which is why ROKOR broke away from the Moscow Patriarchate in the 1920s. ROKOR being my jurisdiction, Russian Orthodox Church outside Russia. So what my family, my American family, learned from those saints was the truth of the Orthodox Church. That witness spoke directly to my parents and many other people, I assume. I'm sure they weren't alone in being inspired by that witness. So the lesson we learn from the saints, there's, what a great question. Thank you, Lola. Thank you. This is why I need help. You know what I mean? It's, if there ever is a day where I'm lacking a question, what my plan is to just go to the calendar, the Orthodox Church calendar, and look at the daily scripture readings, and we'd talk about that for a while. Which I should maybe also do in addition to this, but one thing at a time. So the lesson of the saints is the life of Jesus Christ. That's the lesson of the saints. How to live the life of Christ. That's a literal thing that I'm saying. At the end of the Gospel of John, as we remember, he says, there are also many other things which Jesus did, the which, if they should be written every one, I suppose that not even the world itself could hold the books that would be written. Well, that's a very big thing to say, and you could say, well, it's exaggeration, or it's artful embellishment, or something to make a point. No, but it's true, because it's the gospel. Now, I mean, I am a fool, but I don't think one of the things that makes me foolish is believing the gospel. It's not so much that I find that statement in itself persuasive. Like, I'm like, oh, really? Awesome. There's that, that's how much Christ did. Amazing. It is amazing, of course, but it's not a simple one-to-one like that. It's like this. When the gospel tells you something like that, you stop, okay, and you say to yourself, you could even call it a mental game. Let's just play a mental game. Don't say to yourself, how could that be true? Say to yourself, let me figure out how that could be true using my reason. Some people will call this mental gymnastics or whatever. Hey, wouldn't it be awesome? Isn't gymnastics awesome? Why do people say that as though it's a bad thing? Mental gymnastics. They throw that around at religious people about theology or whatever. Yeah, put your mind to work. Do a couple of sets and see what happens to it. That's what the gospel is asking, actually. It requires us to do that if we want to get the most out of it. Because God gave us our reason, just like he gave us the gospel. This is how he works with our free will, by the way. He asks us to trust him. And once we trust him, we take his statements seriously. We take the gospel seriously. This is why ecclesiology matters too, by the way. None of this would be possible if I didn't trust the church. But I trust the church, so I trust the product of the church, the gospel. So I trust the words of the gospel. And in the words of the gospel, we hear that there are many other things that Jesus did, which, if they could be written every one, the whole world couldn't contain the books. So that's the lives of the saints, is the life of Christ that he is living through other people when they surrender their will to him, as we hear from St. Paul. My dad's calling, so let me just tell him that I'm streaming right now. Let's see here. I'm streaming now live on the internet. Would you like to say anything on speakerphone?
Hi, world out there. I need to ask my son if he can take me someplace tomorrow.
Yes. Well,
how long are you going to be streaming?
Until about 2 o'clock.
All right. Well, here's what I would like. I would like for you to take me to the Apple store in Columbia at leaving here about 10.
Okay.
Or whatever's workable close to that. And then Mom will take Theo, and she'll have Marina and Theo and Ariel and herself, etc.
All right. Okay. Sounds like
about
a plan.
10. Okay.
Love you very
Bye,
much.
Everybody.
Say goodbye, Father George. All right. So, this is family life and parish life. All those names that he just mentioned is like people that are, that's our support network. That's our parish. This is the Orthodox life, right? So what would normally be like a normal, like that's just a father-son thing. You take your dad to the doctor's appointment, or take your dad to the Apple store because his computer's crapping out and he needs a new one, and he uses it for his music work and stuff. So a bunch of other folks in the parish are gonna, help watch my son while I take, my dad to his appointment. Anyway, okay, so the life of Christ is lived in his saints. No, it's the parish kids, some of them are. A couple of them were. No. Theo is my kid, is the one who's sitting over here watching the Paw Patrol toys or whatever he's watching. No, he's watching Ryan's World at the moment. Well, it says in the scripture, wondrous is God in his saints. This is why I need a green screen. This because of things like this. I want to be able to put my finger over that box, but I can't. So we're gonna make it just a little smaller. Wondrous is God in his saints. Again, do we believe the scripture? Or is it just a nice thing to say? A nice thing to sing, It's got the word wondrous in it. It's got the word saints in it. It's nice words. We go together. We might hear the church hymn melody when we hear it in our heads. But what does it mean? What is it saying? Well, it says he's wondrous is he in his saints. Who are his saints? Who are the saints? What does it mean? What does saint mean? What does saint mean? What does it mean? Yeah, I'm going to leave that question hanging out there for a little bit. But meanwhile, it says that he chooses to, he's wondrous in his saints, which means that's his will. That's his will, is to be wondrous in his saints. So, So let's believe the scripture, and then let's use our reason to ask what that means. This you take this and combine it with the end of the Gospel of John about there being many other things that Jesus did. And Jesus tells his disciples also, he said, you'll be able to do greater things than I've done. And he's speaking of the wonders that he's performed thus far in his ministry when he's talking to his disciples. You'll see these things, you'll see these and greater things than these, because I will be with my Father. So in other words, he tells us in the gospel himself, from Jesus' mouth, that the saints will show forth greater wonders. And he's, of course, we know that doesn't happen through their power. It happens only through the power of Christ. So the lesson we learn from the saints is we learn what Christ looks like. We learn what he's doing. We learn what he was doing. We learn that he's always killed. Okay? That's another thing we learn, and I hate to have to say, I mean, I don't want to be martyred. I don't want to be killed. But what a way to go. Since we all have to go. What a way to go. Witnessing to the truth of your faith, and doing so in a non-violent way, while praying for your executioner, while loving him. Yeah. So so anyway, that's one thing we can learn from the saints. But let's get back to that other thing. What can Americans learn from those saints who were martyred during this era? I spoke a little bit, on this topic a couple nights ago. I'm going to stop saying that, qualifying things like that. I'm just going to say things because I can't assume anybody was watching me before today. Yeah, that's what Americans can. There's going to be a lot of that, I think, in the coming days, months. What can Americans learn from those saints who were martyred during this era? Well, that it can happen, that it can happen, that it will happen. We should expect it to happen. Just look to the gospel. I mean, Jesus says everything. And he says, if the world hates you, know that it hated me before it hated you. Before you were in the world, but I have chosen you out of the world. If I were of the world would love his own. So it shouldn't be a surprise. There's nothing controversial here. There's nothing new. What Christians do primarily, what we do best, is die. Let's look at that statement again. Okay. What we do best. And I guess I should rephrase that to mean when we are at our best is when we're dying as Christians. St. Paul said, to live is Christ and to die is gain. So we should address ourselves again to the truth of the scripture and just realize that That's what Americans should learn from those martyrs of the 20th century. Now, there's one level of reaction where you can just react with horror in a general kind of way, because one of the things that I've learned or has been reinforced by speaking with Saul about these matters is that people are killed all over the world all the time for all sorts of reasons by oppressive governments. So what happened to the Russian Christians is nothing that is spectacularly different from what's been happening. I mean, again, people kill each other. They capture people, they kill them, they take power, they persecute those who they think are a threat to them. But what does that mean? It means that Christianity is a threat to the world, to the governments of the world. Why? Communists will cook up all sorts of excuses why. And they'll say aristocratic structures of blah, 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 continue the oppression of blah, blah, blah. They'll say that. That'll justify their general animosity towards Christianity. But see, then once they've politically defined their animosity towards Christianity, well, what are they really saying? They're saying that, and this is how they justify political violence towards Christians, well, since everyone knows that communism is hostile to Christianity, therefore we should expect Christians to be a security threat to our state should we be able to take power. It's the same justification that Nazis used to round up Jews. It's not just because, you could say just because they're Christian. In their own mind, nobody wants to see themselves, very few people are that directly evil. Just a one-to-one relation, like, I'm going to kill Jews today because they're Jews. No. It's much more insidious than that. The same with Christians. There's ideologies behind this. You have to buy into all the things, Antifa is there. That all you need to know to understand, to understand how this is possible is just look at what happens to Antifa. Any of those of us, and I count myself in that number, that have walked down the leftward political path at some point. This is my left, the political path at some point, have met and somewhat understand this mindset because it's relatable. These are people who, at least at the beginning, profess to care about mankind and care about people's livelihoods and their standard of living and injustice and all the things you're supposed to care about. So you take that and combine it with, the fervor of youth and looking for something outside of yourself to believe in and maybe even give your life for or kill for. And it's not difficult to see. When you look at some of the early martyrdom stories of in the Soviet era, I mean, pre-Stalin, I'm talking early, like 1919, early 20s, that type of time frame. You see stories, and the same in Maoist China, by the way. What you see is not organized state violence. What you see is essentially young people Bonnie and Clyding across the landscape, finding people to, or I say Bonnie and Clyde, or you could say like a Clockwork Orange style. The political environment empowered a certain kind of person to feel like they could just kill someone's family and get away with it. A priest, and a priest would draw attention to himself if he was known to be particularly outspoken about communism and about the direction of the country. So some of the first clergymen who were martyrs were guys like that. So, so there's lessons there, There's lessons there. We're kind of there now. We're there now. It's just a matter of time, I think, before an Orthodox church is specifically targeted. I think in America we have different internal political realities than the Soviet Union, than Russia did pre-Soviet Union. So, yes. Now, Devin in the chat comments that it's confession through projection. This way that we have of, I mean, you're talking about communists, or Nazis, and the way that they set their ideology up to justify their actions and everything. But they'll tell you up front what they're about, though. I've never talked to an actual communist except for one, but he's like a weirdo, and he's got a modified version of communism in his head that somehow allows for the church. But at least when I was younger, every sort of hardcore communist that I talked to, after a few minutes of questioning, would ultimately have to admit that the church has to go for mankind to prosper, or whatever, for man to be truly free. All such institutions have to be eliminated. It's really just a matter of time. So it's a matter of on whoever you're talking to, how do they think, how soon do they think it has to happen, or how long are they willing to wait for it to happen? And you have figures like George Orwell who was a socialist, but ultimately ended up coming to the conclusion that he was done. It was no longer important enough for him. He respected the freedom of his fellow Englishmen too much to feel that it would ever be justified to impose such a system on them. His hope was that Englishmen, and I say that because he was really only addressing England, the situation in England, and perhaps like the British Isles, but he was not interested. He hardly ever addressed America, America's political system or anything. He was concerned about the situation in Europe. But he believed in socialism, and he believed that everybody should believe in it, but he was also at the same time appalled by the kind of people who were promoting it, and the kind of people and the things that they were willing to do and the way that they behave. And he was like, I can't impose this. I can't ask my fellow Englishmen to accept what these people are saying and how they're acting. So to him, ultimately, the freedom of his neighbor was more important than what he thought was the ideal political system. It's very rare to find a real socialist like that, though, who really believes in it and at the same time respects freedom. Anyways, that's a tangent. This is not meant to be a political thing, really. The problem is, though, that if you're Russian Orthodox, you especially if you're raised in ROKOR, and Russian Orthodox Church outside Russia, well, politics is closely connected to the immediate history of our jurisdiction. Not American politics, but political systems and their outcomes, their statements and their outcomes and their enemies. These are all very important. And they're very important throughout church history as well. But for ROKOR, it's within living memory. So it's a different thing when it's within living memory. Now, it's not my memory, but similar to how you overheard this phone call from my father, and it drew you got a little tiny snapshot of like parish life. That's our life, but also it's parish life, and everybody's like knows each other and they help each other out and stuff. It's just like normal community support network type behavior, well, it's the same when you grow up at a place like the Cathedral St. John the Baptist in Washington, D.C., which is like the ROKOR Cathedral. Beautiful place where I grew up. And you're around the survivors of communist persecution, people who saw their parents taken away in the middle of the night or shot in the middle of the street. That kind of thing. People whose parents are the new martyrs. Then it's a different thing. So I think I can claim living memory, just because that's what happens. Your parents, your grandparents, they tell you stories. They're the stories you grew up hearing. That's part of the acculturation process. So there's a lot to learn. A lot to learn indeed. From the story of the 20th century martyrs. And I'm getting notifications, but not text messages. They are notifications from my MLB at Bat app on my phone because spring training is heating up. I love baseball. And that reminds me, we got to sign our kid up for sign a couple of our kids up for Little League. All right, so let's see here. I'm gonna roll for maybe another 10, 15 minutes. If somebody else wants to hop in with a comment or another question, now would be a good time. And also, I think, what do you think? Should I create edited versions of these live streams as well? Should I and put them out later? I think there might be a market for that. That's what I'm doing with the video game stuff, because that's like long passages of me just kind of like looking at the screen or using too many filler words. Which I'm trying to be self-disciplined about filler words instead of relying on the editing later. And I'm having a lot of fun doing the editing, by the way. It is tedious, but I'm hoping that through experience I'll be able to get it to where it can go faster. But it reminds me of the old days when I was too slow editing the old podcast that me and a couple of guys used to work on. But it's fun. It's like, anyway, it's fun. Okay, I'm not seeing anything in the chat at the moment. So let's see here. Maybe I got something from Discord. Probably not, though. That's another thing I want to build up. I might start putting a Discord link to my Discord channel in the YouTube description. That might, I don't know. Maybe that would be inviting a bunch of trolls or something. Although it's a channel that already has a couple of pretty well practiced trolls. Yeah, drop. I know. You like, you're an adrenaline junkie. You don't like baseball. Yep. Yeah, so I'm getting good advice. The long silence as I read these chat comments, by the way, might be something I would consider editing out. Because but I guess everybody watching, if anybody's actually watching, then perhaps they are also looking at the chat, so maybe it's not even a big deal. But for people watching later, that's the one thing. I need to work on additional OBS tools, such as perhaps displaying the chat or doing what StreamYard just has as built-in feature, super easy to use, where you can just click on the comment and display it, and it's super easy. I may just transition back to StreamYard for the actual streaming platform, like still use OBS to record while I'm streaming, but use StreamYard itself to stream. Just because that functionality is really nice, it's not hard to use. So, he likes it. He does like baseball, he admits, Drop admits, because it puts him to sleep. Cures his insomnia. That's fair. That's fair. it just, to me, it feels like spring. That's all. You know, when spring training starts, it's like, you know, right when the weather's warming up. And it's one of the things about baseball. Somebody pointed out, like, the baseball season, if you go spring to, like, leaving out Arizona Fall League and all that kind of thing, but, well, not leaving it out. The point is, wherever it's warm, baseball's being played. And so there's just this pleasant match um of the seasons in the northern temperate zone, uh in the temperate zone of the northern hemisphere, that it just means happiness to me. uh yeah, plus it's pretty cool to all right, cheers, Game Writer. Thanks for joining. Talk to you soon. um yeah. um and guys, you know, including Drop and Devin, please feel free to send me any and all feedback through whatever forum we know we speak to each other, and it goes for anybody that watches this later. Even if I've refined everything to a good degree since that time, I think I'll transition off of let's see here. Let me put video capture back on top. Move to top. Transition. Boom. Anyway, yeah, any and all feedback is going to be welcome. You know, as I learn stuff, and, you know, for example, maybe I should have gotten this restaurant style Clancy's brand tortilla chip bag out of the camera before starting. You can see my this is the real evidence right here of the stay-at-home dadness. This is my desk side reading. Here we have the fold out, the insert for Giant and the insert for Aldi. You know, if you've seen me speaking on QV about or on Quad Meet or something about my cooking adventures and my grocery shopping adventures, that's my evidence. And then we've got the other evidence of stay-at-home dadness, which is we got that's from Charlotte and a little bit from Justinian. Thank you for your funnies and huggies. And then we've got this is Justinian's work. It's a little bit creepy. It's a little bit creepy. But yeah, there it is. He gets his J's backward right now, but that's all right. Oh goodness. Yeah, it drops. Yeah, you and your ketchup. It wasn't random. I just keep I just happen to. Anyways, no need to go into it. Gross you out. All right, so I think that's probably good, right? It's been almost an hour, and we're closing in. So if I don't see any other suggestions or chats with questions pop up, we'll call it there. Let's see here. No more notifications on QV. Probably need to do it. Well, you know, I'll probably just do it every day, every weekday. I missed the first 2 days this week, and I'm absolutely kicking myself. The thing is, I've been like, just when I actually have the motivation and the desire to do this stuff, well, I got 3 done last week, and I apologize for crowing about this, but I'm just so I'm usually so lazy that I'm almost amazed that I mean, I really have to thank God for it, because I'm almost amazed that because two of those three that I did last week, I did not feel like doing. Like last 10 minutes before I started the recordings or whatever, I was just like, I just, this inertia, sort of overwhelming inertia, started settling in. Um, but anyway, I got, so two out of the three last week I didn't even feel like doing. And if you know me, you know usually if I don't feel like doing something, I don't I don't do it. So anyway, um, so thank you for your prayers and your continued support. Anybody that ends up watching this, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe and all that good stuff that I hear you're supposed to say at the end of your videos. I guess you're supposed to say them at the beginning of the videos in case people leave before the end. So whatever, I don't care. If you like it though, why not like it? Um, so uh, uh, we had a good time. We talked a little bit about the saints and the importance of the saints, what we can learn from the saints, especially the saints of the 20th century and those martyrs of the 20th century. And we have immense gratitude for the saints. It's because of the saints that we know about Christ. That's really the best thing that I could have said on the matter. And now I'll definitely edit this video because because that's the truth. Um, we it's because of the saints that we know about Christ. Um, and it's because of Christ that that they knew about him. So, uh, uh, so the lesson we learn from the saints is Jesus Christ. Okay, thanks again for joining, and thanks for commenting and hanging out, guys and gals, if there are any of those as well, and everything in between. I don't know. Everybody's welcome to watch this show. Doesn't mean it's going to be very pleasant for you necessarily, but everybody's welcome. I'm determined to be civil to everybody except trolls. So, anyways, God bless all of you, and we'll talk again soon.